On Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My best friend went from being my surrogate to being my husband's lover. I found them in my own swimming pool. My life has become a real torment in recent years. It all started with the fertility problems that my husband Logan and I have faced. We met at university, and since then we have dreamed of building a future together. Coming from families with limited resources, life was not easy at first. We supported each other and worked tirelessly to forge a life we could be proud of. Over time, we managed to save enough to buy our house and achieve goals that previously seemed unattainable. However, there is one dream that has eluded us: starting our own family. After trying to get pregnant for years without success, we decided to consult a specialist. The results revealed that I had the problem: some complications in my uterus were preventing me from conceiving. The news completely devastated me, as it would any woman who dreams of being a mother. For as long as I can remember, my greatest wish was to have a child, to hold him in my arms and raise him with all the love and dedication that my mother gave to me. Finding out that it might not be possible was like having that dream snatched away from me. For the next few weeks, I couldn't stop crying. I would curl up on the sofa or stay in bed sobbing until my body ached. Logan was devastated too. Although he tried to stay strong for me, I could see the sadness in his eyes. We had built our lives imagining a future with children's laughter and little footsteps echoing through the house. Buying our home had been a great achievement for us. It was supposed to be the place where we would raise our children, where we would create the family memories we had always dreamed of. Now it felt like an empty space, a painful reminder of what we might never have. After getting over the initial shock of learning that I couldn't conceive, and after countless days of tears, Logan and I gradually began to accept our reality. Although it wasn't easy, we wanted to keep our hopes alive somehow. We looked into other options, such as adoption. At first it seemed promising, but as we delved deeper into the subject, we realized how extensive and exhausting the process could be. The prospect of waiting for years, facing endless legal paperwork and living in uncertainty was overwhelming. I didn't want to wait indefinitely. It was then that we considered surrogacy, especially gestational surrogacy. It seemed the best alternative, as it would allow us to have a child with a biological connection to both of us. But then we faced economic reality: surrogacy is extraordinarily expensive. And although Logan and I were willing to make any necessary sacrifices, the figures were truly shocking. What's more, with this option, we needed to be absolutely certain about who we would choose as our surrogate. It wasn't just a question of finding someone willing to carry our child. We had to be sure that she was the right person, trustworthy and responsible. We had to consider the legal and medical aspects and ensure that the surrogate fully understood the commitment she was making. I was sharing my concerns with my best friend Marie one night about the cost and difficulties of surrogacy. Marie and I have been inseparable since university. She is more than a friend, she is like my sister. We have been through all kinds of experiences together, from late-night study sessions to breakups and celebrations. Logan and I adore her, and she's known him for as long as I have. Marie is married to Josh and they have beautiful twins, whom I have watched grow up. I have always loved their children as if they were my own, and caring for them has been one of my greatest joys. I would often imagine our children playing together, while we chatted over coffee and shared stories about parenting. As I poured my heart out to her about the cost and challenges of surrogacy and how difficult it was to find the right person, Marie suddenly interrupted me. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of emotion and determination, and she asked me, "What if I were your surrogate?" I stood there, staring at her, unable to believe it. Her words hung in the air for a moment and I could feel my heart racing. She continued, "You know me and you trust me. I know how important this is for you and I would love to help you." She was completely serious. Her eyes, big and excited, were fixed on me, and for a moment I couldn't even reply. I was stunned by her offer, by the pure generosity and love behind it. This was Marie, my best friend, offering me the one thing I had wanted more than anything else in the world. It seemed too good to be true, and yet I could see in her face that she genuinely wanted to do this for me. Her emotion was evident and, for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I felt a glimmer of hope. I accepted immediately, without hesitation, and hugged her tightly, tears rolling down my face as I held her, overwhelmed by her generosity and love. She hugged me back and I could tell she was crying too. I felt we were on the verge of something truly extraordinary. Later we met to discuss this decision with our husbands. It was not something that any of us could take lightly without careful consideration. When I told them what Marie had offered, Logan was visibly uncomfortable. He frowned as if it was hard for him to process what she was proposing. Josh, for his part, was also surprised. He asked Marie if she had thought it through. I mean, going through a pregnancy and carrying someone else's child is not something to be taken lightly, especially considering all the emotional and physical strain it could entail. Marie nodded and assured him that she wanted to do it. She explained that, as she didn't want to have any more children after her twins, she felt it was an honor to carry my son for me. Josh knew us. He knew the bonds Marie and I shared, the depth of our friendship. I could see the initial concern in his eyes fade as he listened to her. After a brief pause, he smiled and nodded. "It's your decision at the end of the day. I'll support you no matter what," he said, his voice firm and kind. Despite his approval, I could see that my husband did not share the same acceptance. Logan expressed his concern, saying that he didn't feel comfortable with Marie taking our son. I was surprised by his hesitation. What did he mean by not feeling comfortable? This was Marie, my best friend. Someone we both trusted completely. She was offering to do something incredibly selfless and generous for us, and I couldn't understand why she wasn't embracing the idea. But Logan was adamant that we should look for someone else to be our surrogate. He told me he was worried about how the dynamic of our friendship would change, about the emotional complexities that might arise. "What if this affects our relationship with her or our relationship?" he asked repeatedly. He was also deeply concerned about Marie's well-being, both physically and emotionally. "What if something goes wrong?" "I don't want to put her at risk," he said, his voice heavy with concern. I tried to reassure him, explaining how much this meant to me, how Marie had thought it through carefully and wasn't making the offer thoughtlessly. "I don't know. I just don't feel right about it," he went on, running his hand through his hair. "It's not that I don't trust her. It's just that this is a big deal. It changes everything." We argued for what seemed like an eternity, discussing every aspect of the situation. I felt frustrated at times, unable to understand why he couldn't see it the way I did. For me, it was the perfect solution. My best friend carrying my child. Finally, after countless conversations and reassurances, Logan finally agreed. I could see he was still apprehensive, but he chose to trust me and Marie. For several weeks, we worked closely with a doctor and a reputable surrogacy agency. We signed mountains of paperwork and legal documents that clearly established the rights and responsibilities of both parties. We even agreed on a payment plan to compensate Marie for her time and effort. More importantly, we arranged for regular counseling sessions and medical appointments to ensure her physical and emotional well-being throughout this process. Throughout all of this, I stood by Marie's side, making sure she knew she could back out at any time if she felt unsure or uncomfortable about anything. I never wanted her to feel trapped or obligated to do this for me, but Marie remained steadfast and confident every step of the way. She kept saying how excited she was to help me become a mother, and her enthusiasm kept my hope alive. And then the miracle happened. Marie became pregnant through IVF. To clarify, she was carrying our embryo, created using both Logan's sperm and my egg. When the doctor confirmed the news, I could hardly contain my joy. It felt surreal, as if the universe had finally aligned to make my lifelong dream come true. I cried with happiness, feeling a deep gratitude towards Marie and the journey we had undertaken together. Logan shared my excitement. We were finally going to be parents. We spent countless nights dreaming about the future, talking about names, imagining what our child might be like and planning how we would raise him. I set about preparing the baby's room, carefully selecting colors, furniture and decorations that felt perfect for the little one on the way. I bought multiple outfits for our little one to wear after he or she was born. Logan and I were in a bubble of happiness, treasuring every moment of anticipation. But my happiness was short-lived. About 3 months into Marie's pregnancy, I went to visit my parents for the day. It was a pleasant and relaxed visit as usual. I stayed longer than I had planned, chatting with them and enjoying their company. When it was time to leave, I realized that my phone's battery was almost dead. By the time I got in the car, it had completely shut down. I didn't have a charger with me, but I figured it wouldn't be a problem since I knew the way back home. I thought I would just go home and charge it there. When I entered my driveway that night, I noticed that Marie's car was parked outside. It seemed strange. It wasn't unusual for her to stop by, but she would usually always let me know before coming over. I went into the house, expecting to find Marie waiting to talk, or maybe share some exciting pregnancy news, but instead, I came across a scene that turned my stomach and destroyed my world. By the pool, my husband and my best friend were embracing, naked. The scene in front of me was so unreal that it felt like I was in a nightmare. My heart was pounding in my chest and, for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I let out a loud scream, a sound of pure horror and betrayal before I could even process what I was seeing. The sound startled them and they turned to look at me standing there. Their faces paled as they hurried to cover themselves, clearly in panic. Logan grabbed his clothes, muttering incoherently, while Marie looked as if she wanted the earth to swallow her up. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. My husband, my best friend, together. Logan looked terrified. He approached me cautiously as if he were trying to calm a frightened animal. He kept saying something, words that I couldn't fully process at first, trying to explain, trying to calm the situation, but one sentence cut through the fog of my rage. "What are you doing here? You weren't supposed to get home this early." I was paralyzed. My mind was racing. What did he mean? I wasn't supposed to get home early. It was then that I noticed the open phone in his hand. Its screen was on and I immediately recognized the app for finding my phone. My heart sank even lower when I realized it. I snatched the phone from his hand. My fingers trembled with a mixture of fury and despair as I scanned the screen. I realized that Logan had been tracking my movements, probably to keep an eye on me, making sure I didn't discover them. But today, with my phone dead, he hadn't been able to predict my arrival, and that was how he'd caught them in the act. I turned to him. My voice trembled with rage. "How long have you been tracking me?" My question wasn't just about the app. It was about how deep this betrayal went. How much of it was built on lies? Logan's lips trembled as he stammered, and then the words came out like a death sentence. "Since my affair began." Adventure, the word felt like a dagger in my chest. Tears filled my eyes as the weight of it all hit me. This wasn't a mistake, a moment of weakness. This was something ongoing, planned. My husband had been having an affair, and not with just anyone, but with Marie, my best friend. I turned to look at Marie, who had been like a sister to me, standing there, her gaze lowered, her face red with shame. I shouted at her, "For God's sake, you're pregnant." She said nothing. She made no attempt to defend herself or explain. I could only look at her in disbelief, my heart breaking at the betrayal of someone I had trusted completely. I turned back to Logan, my voice breaking as I demanded, "How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? Did this start after she got pregnant?" My voice rose with each question, desperation mixing with my anger. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I needed to understand how the two people I loved and trusted most in the world could do this to me. Logan confessed, his voice trembling, that he and Marie had been together for the past year. Hearing that felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. He said their affair had begun shortly after we had received the devastating news about my infertility. He presented himself as a victim, saying that while I had been depressed and inconsolable, he had no one else to turn to. According to him, Marie had been there for him during that time, comforting him in ways that I couldn't. His voice broke as he admitted that one thing led to another and they ended up together. He told me how incredibly guilty he felt, but that over time he had come to see it as a way of releasing stress. I almost vomited when I heard his words. Releasing stress by sleeping with my best friend? Logan tried to explain as if this was just something physical and not romantic at all, as if that could justify the betrayal. Marie, who had been silent until then, had started to cry silently. She apologized, her voice trembling, saying how sorry she was for what she had done. She told me she loved me and wished she could turn back time. She kept repeating that it was only physical and that their affair should never have happened. Between sobs, she said she was horrified by her actions, ashamed of the decision she had made and ashamed even to look me in the face. But her apologies only made me angrier. Her tears felt fake, like a performance, as if she thought crying would somehow make up for the pain she had caused me. She was crying as if I had hurt her. How dare she? The sheer audacity of it made my blood boil. She tried to reassure me, saying that what she and Logan had wasn't serious, so I shouldn't even bother, but her words only made me more furious. "You have no right to even talk to me," I said furiously, my voice trembling with rage. "You slept with my husband after you found out I couldn't be a mother. I can't bear to look at you, you evil witch. If you weren't pregnant, I would have dragged you out of my house." I meant every word. She knew me better than anyone. I didn't give second chances, not when someone betrayed me like that. Once the bridge is burned, it's over. And this was the ultimate betrayal. I let my anger out, letting her know exactly how I felt. "You knew what Logan and I were going through. You knew the pain I was suffering and, instead of supporting me, instead of being the friend I thought you were, you slept with my husband. You chose to do this. You didn't love me the way I loved you. You never saw me as your family because if you had, you never could have done something like this." She stood there crying, looking pathetic, but I felt nothing but disgust. I turned to Logan, my voice trembling with barely contained anger and devastation. "How could you hide this from me when Marie agreed to be our surrogate? Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you confess everything to me? I could have left then. I could have let you do whatever you wanted with her. Instead, now I'm trapped in this nightmare with you. Why would you do this to me?" Logan knelt down, tears streaming down his face as he begged me to forgive him. His voice broke as he pleaded, insisting that he loved me and couldn't live without me. He admitted that he had tried to talk me out of letting Marie be our surrogate. He confessed that he was surprised when she accepted, but that he did not stop the process because I had already made my decision and he could see how desperately I wanted to be a mother. He claimed that he could not tell me the truth because he was afraid of losing me, afraid of what it would do to us. Sleeping with Marie meant nothing to me. She means nothing. You are my wife. I love you, he kept saying over and over again, as if those words could somehow erase the betrayal. He promised that his affair was over and that he would even stop seeing her so that he could build a life with me and do whatever it took to fix this. But his words sounded empty to me. I just shook my head at Marie. Imagine being the mistress of a married man, risking everything only to be discarded like nothing. Her reaction spoke for itself, but I couldn't find a shred of sympathy for her. I then asked Marie if she had been with my husband during the IVF process. I needed to know if she was really carrying my child or if it was just their baby. It was then that she confessed, with a mixture of guilt and defiance, that she and Logan had continued together even during the IVF process, without protection. My stomach churned as she admitted that there was a significant possibility that the child she was carrying was not the result of IVF at all. The baby might not be biologically mine. It could have been conceived naturally between her and Logan. My eyes opened wide as I heard this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. The air escaped from my lungs. I looked at them both, barely able to form words. Why? I managed to whisper, my voice breaking under the weight of my emotions. Why would you do this to me? Logan tried to justify himself, his tone full of panic and defensiveness. Don't listen to her. I'm sure the baby is ours, and even if it wasn't, who cares? We're still going to have a child. And that's what matters. I looked at him with disgust, feeling that he had completely lost his mind. He continued, desperately trying to explain. Listen, I was just afraid that the IVF might fail, he said, his words coming out in a rush. I didn't want you to fall into another depression. I didn't want you to get sad and depressed again. At least this way we get a child that we can raise and call our own. I was just trying to make it work for both of us. I stared at him in disbelief, my hands trembling with rage. Protect me? I shouted. You call this protecting me? You were lying to me, cheating on me, and now you've stolen from me the only thing I've ever wanted more than anything else, a child of my own. Marie, standing to one side, assured me that even if the baby was biologically hers and Logan's, she had no intention of keeping the child or seeking custody. She was willing to simply give it to us. Her words were cold and emotionless, as if she were talking about an object to be handed over. She showed absolutely no empathy for the baby she was carrying. The room felt suffocating at that moment. Not only had I discovered my husband and my best friend having an affair, but now I had to live with the fact that the child I had been dreaming of, preparing for, and loving in my heart might not even be mine. I knew I couldn't live with this. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to find the strength to face them. Okay, here's what's going to happen now, I said, looking at them both. I addressed Marie first. Marie, I want you to leave my house right now, and just so you know, I'm going to call and inform Josh about your affair with Logan. I'm not going to let him be a fool any longer. Marie's eyes widened in panic and she opened her mouth to argue that this would destroy her marriage to Josh, but I wasn't interested in hearing another word from her. Then I turned to Logan, the man who had sworn to love and cherish me. The man with whom I had built my life was standing there, looking ashamed and defeated. My voice cracked slightly as I spoke to him, but I refused to let the tears fall. Logan, I want you to pack your things and leave. I don't want to hear any more of your explanations. I just need time to think, to process all of this, and I can only do that when I'm away from you. Whatever apology you have, whatever excuse you want to give, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear them now. I need space. Logan's face crumpled as he begged me to reconsider. He pleaded with me, saying he didn't want to leave the house and that he wanted to stay and make things right with me. He told me that I could fight with him as much as I wanted, but I couldn't even look at him. After much arguing, he finally gave in, reluctantly packing a bag and walking out the door with Marie. Once they were gone, I picked up my phone and called Josh. I told him everything, the affair, the possibility that the baby wasn't mine, and his excuses. I told him every horrible detail. I could hear the shock in his silence and then the devastation in his voice. He asked me to repeat it, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He sounded as devastated as I felt. In the end, he thanked me for telling him the truth, his voice breaking with emotion, and we hung up. Since then, Logan and Marie have been relentless. They've been calling, texting, emailing, begging for my forgiveness, for a chance to make things right. Logan keeps telling me how much he misses me, how much he loves me, and how he wants us to work things out. He promises that we can get through this and that he'll do whatever it takes. Suddenly, he's ready to go to counseling and talk things through, but I can't even bring myself to respond. Every time I see his name pop up on my phone, I feel a new wave of nausea and anger. I can't imagine trusting him again. I can't imagine letting either of them back into my life. Am I the bad guy if I decide to end my marriage because of this? Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their advice and kind words of support. For those who are wondering, I really feel relieved to have found out what was going on before the baby was born. Logan and Marie were so sure of themselves that they thought I would never doubt whether the child was mine after it was born. I guess they are so messed up that they just assumed I would accept the baby as mine regardless of whether it looked like me or not. And yes, since Marie and Logan continued to have sex during the IVF process, there is a strong possibility that she could have become pregnant naturally and that they are both the biological parents. Update 2. Hi everyone, it's been a month since I told you what was going on. For those of you who are wondering, I have decided to separate from Logan. After talking to my lawyer about all my options, I feel like moving away from him is the best thing for me at the moment. We have a prenuptial agreement, so the divorce should be quite simple. When the baby is born, we will do a DNA test to find out who the biological mother is. If the child turns out to be mine, I will share the upbringing with Logan. If it is not mine, then Logan and Marie will have to take charge. Logan is not handling our divorce well. He has been begging for forgiveness, turning up at the house at midnight drunk, crying and leaving me lots of voice messages. Despite all this, I have not fallen for his manipulation. It's as if I no longer feel anything for him and I just want him out of my life. As for Marie, her husband left her and now she is trying to get custody of their twins. As she was the one who cheated, she is not entitled to alimony and it is very likely that her husband will win custody of the children. Marie has had to move in with her parents because she is devastated and has nowhere else to stay. She has been sending me several emails since I blocked her on social media, apologizing over and over again. She keeps saying that she is very sorry and that she still loves me like a sister, begging me to forgive her. Since the news of our divorces broke, everyone has turned their back on Logan and Marie, even our families. Logan's parents are furious. His father has threatened to disinherit him and leave all his money to the unborn baby. Marie's parents, who have known me since we were best friends, have apologized many times for what their daughter did, but I haven't even bothered to reply to them. Update 3. It's been 7 months since I last wrote to let you know how things were going. Thanks to everyone who has waited patiently for news. Marie gave birth a few weeks ago. We finally did the maternity test. The results showed that I am not the child's mother. Although I know that this is the best news that could come out of all this drama, and believe me, I feel relieved that I am no longer connected to Logan and Marie, it also breaks my heart that I cannot be a mother. Before I found out about their deception, I was so excited about the idea of being a mother and now all those dreams have been shattered. And to make things even worse, Marie and Logan have decided to give their baby up for adoption because they don't want it. It hurts even more to see how cruel and inhuman they both are. I can't believe they were ever part of my life. I moved to another city because I felt very sad living in the same place, where everything reminded me of Logan and Marie. They were a very important part of my life for so long and I trusted them so much. I'm not going to lie, it hasn't been easy, but I've been going to therapy and I honestly think I'm going to be okay.